Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to really dig into something that's changing pretty fast, and that's electric bicycle regulations in the US.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic.
So we're going to cut through the noise, right? We're going to look at what's important now, what's coming down the road, how these rules affect how and where you can ride, and, maybe even what to think about if you're thinking about getting an e-bike.
Exactly.
So we've been digging into a bunch of stuff. Federal guidelines, state rules, even local ordinances. And it's interesting. It's more complex than you might think at first.
It really is. It really is. There's a lot going on.
All right, so let's start with the foundation. Okay, most states are using this three-class system for e-bikes, so let's make sure everyone's on the same page.
Sounds good.
Class 1, pedal assist only, up to 20 miles an hour. So generally, if a regular bike can go somewhere, a Class 1 e-bike can too.
Right. Makes sense.
But here's a little wrinkle. By 2025, California is actually going to allow a low-speed, start assistance or walk mode, even for Class 1. So imagine, you don't even have to pedal and you can get a little boost to get moving.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's acknowledging that even pedal assist only bikes could benefit from a little help sometimes.
Right. Now, Class 2, pedal assist and a throttle, still 20 miles an hour max.
Generally okay on bike paths, but that throttle use can sometimes cause, well, some headaches, some local restrictions.
Yeah, definitely gotta be mindful of that. And then Class 3, pedal assist only again, but these ones can go up to 28 miles an hour.
Yeah, you often need a speedometer with Class 3, and you'll see more restrictions on where they're allowed, sometimes age limits, helmet requirements, that sort of thing.
Right. And a big change is coming here. Starting in 2025, both California and Oregon are banning throttles on new Class 3 e-bikes.
Except for that low-speed walk assist.
Except for the walk assist, right. So it seems like they're really trying to keep the higher speeds focused on pedal power. What do you think's driving that?
I think it's mostly about safety. I mean, when you get up to those higher speeds, how e-bikes interact with other people on paths and roads, it's a different ballgame.
Absolutely. But, even though we've got this three-class system, over 40 states are using it, it's not universal.
Oh, no, not at all.
And you sent me some examples that really highlight how different things can be in different places. For example, Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska, they consider e-bikes as motor-driven cycles, so you actually need a driver's license to ride one.
And sidewalks, bike trails, no-go. So that really affects how people can use e-bikes there.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got Hawaii. They require registration for what they call low-speed electric bicycles. That's basically anything under 20 miles an hour assisted. And they've got minimum age requirements and helmet laws.
And then there's Massachusetts. They treat e-bikes up to 25 miles an hour as motorized bicycles. So again, you need a license, you need registration.
Exactly. So it's a good example of how you can't just assume the rules are the same everywhere. You really got to check your state and local regulations.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some specific changes, some things that are happening right now or coming up really soon that could really affect e-bike riders. California's SB 1271, effective in 2025. This is a big one.
Yeah, it's got some pretty sweeping changes. We've already talked about those stricter throttle rules, but it also puts a hard cap on motor power at 750 watts.
Right, no more souping up your e-bike beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2026, California is also going to start requiring battery safety testing and certification with labels to show that the battery's been checked out.
Mm-hmm. Big step towards, dealing with the potential fire risk. It's a way to make sure things are safer and give consumers more peace of mind.
For sure. And they're also going to ban any modifications that take the speed or power beyond those legal limits.
Right. And you can't just take the pedals off either. It has to be a real bicycle.
Interesting. So it seems like California is really trying to get ahead of the curve here with these regulations.
Yeah, they're definitely leading the pack in some ways. And we're seeing similar things happening elsewhere. You mentioned Oregon.
Right. Oregon's also banning throttles on Class 3 e-bikes in 2025 and setting that same 750-watt motor limit. But it's not just at the state level. A lot of local areas are putting their own rules in place.
Absolutely. It's really interesting to see how that's playing out at the local level. Some places are more restrictive, some are more lenient.
Right. So, for example, Coronado, California, they've banned e-bikes completely from sidewalks and parks.
Interesting.
And then you've got Orange County, California. They're actually getting ready for stricter enforcement because they've seen a rise in accidents involving e-bikes.
Makes sense.
And then Cypress, California, they're specifically restricting Class 2 and 3 e-bikes on sidewalks.
So you can really see how the specific concerns of different communities are shaping those local rules.
Absolutely. And, it really highlights that, again, you got to know what's going on in your own area. Now, shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about safety. That seems to be a big theme in a lot of these regulations. New York State, they've got a new battery safety law effective January of this year.
Yeah, that's right. Now they're requiring translated operating manuals for lithium-ion batteries. You got to have it in print and digital format so everybody can understand those safety instructions.
Right, because those batteries, they can be dangerous if they're not handled properly. Now, what about on the federal level? Are there any big changes brewing that we should be aware of?
Well, there's the E-Bike Act. It's been proposed, and it would create a 30% tax credit for qualified e-bike purchases.
Wow, that could be huge for people thinking about getting an e-bike.
It really could. The bikes would have to be under $8,000, have pedals, and a motor under 750 watts.
So it's really targeting like those everyday practical e-bikes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. They're looking into setting some new federal safety rules for e-bikes, focusing on things like mechanical hazards.
So making sure the bikes themselves are built to a certain standard.
Right, right. There's a push to require UL safety standards nationwide, but that didn't end up making it into a recent funding bill.
Interesting. But it's worth pointing out that some cities, like New York City, already require UL certification.
Yeah, and that shows you that those standards are becoming increasingly important, even if they're not mandated at the federal level.
For sure, for sure. Now, we've talked about a lot of changes that are, expanding access to e-bikes, focusing on safety, but there are also some moves in the opposite direction.
That's right. We're seeing some states considering more restrictive measures. You've got New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. They've all been discussing things like registration, licensing, and even insurance for e-bikes.
Whoa, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, and advocacy groups, groups like People for Bikes, they're pushing back on that.
Yeah.
They're worried about how these kinds of measures could make e-bikes less accessible, especially for people who rely on them for transportation.
Right, right. And California's got another proposal, AB 2234, that could bring in things like safety programs, skills waivers, age restrictions. So it's clear that the conversation about how to regulate e-bikes is, well, it's far from over.
It's definitely evolving.
So let's try to bring it all together. What are the big takeaways here for e-bike riders and potential e-bike buyers?
I think the main thing is that e-bike regulations are a bit of a Wild West right now. They're changing all the time, and what applies in one place might not apply in another. We're seeing some movement towards standardization, especially with that three-class system. But there's also a growing focus on safety, particularly when it comes to throttles and batteries.
So what you're saying is people really need to stay informed and do the research.
Absolutely. You need to check your state laws, your local ordinances, stay up to date on any changes that are coming down the pike.
Right. And groups like People for Bikes, they're doing great work advocating for clear, consistent, and reasonable regulations.
And the industry as a whole is pushing for better safety standards. So, there's a lot of positive movement in that direction as well.
For sure. So as you're out there enjoying your e-bike rides or maybe thinking about getting an e-bike, remember that being well-informed is key to a safe and enjoyable experience. And who knows, maybe your local community is even considering some changes to their e-bike rules.
That's a good point. This is a dynamic area, and it's important for riders to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with a question. What are your thoughts on the future of e-bike regulations? Where do you think things are headed, and what role do you think riders should play in shaping those rules? Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's been great.
See you later.